This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 138.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, Benny? How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. I was able to get some shelter after being homeless for some time. Just kidding. Doing well. How are you?
Yeah. People have to watch the YouTube video to get that joke.
Yeah.
Watch. Well, and now you're living like in a house, but you're living with basically one more person, which is you and the beard.
Yeah, true enough. Good point. It used to be
Its own
3.
entity. It has its own driver's license.
Very true. It used to be 3, actually. One passed away. The thing on my lip that some of you may have seen on YouTube as well.
That's nasty.
Slowly diminished away.
That is nasty. All right. We have a great show, at least in my opinion. Our guest is Jon Scott of ScopeStack, the CEO of ScopeStack. We don't really talk much about ScopeStack. It's more about his path there. Do you have anything to say?
Not really. I mean, it's definitely a good show. Like you said, I mean, a lot of things covered, a lot of things to take out of it, whether it be from the perspective of a founder, from the perspective of an SE, or even future SE as well, or even I guess to do with future SE, to do with
future sales,
work with them. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the show.
Hey, John, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Doing good. How are you?
I am good. So we were just discussing how you and I look alike, and we're pretty. That's why we don't hide our faces. While
beautiful people.
Benny is hiding his face to distract from his face, I guess.
Beardy Benny.
Yeah, beardy Benny.
Your confidence comes with age. I'll get there eventually.
So I would love to know a little bit more about you, especially for those who cannot see you. Who are you? What you do? And why are you here?
Yeah, so my name is Jon Scott. I'm one of the founders of a company called ScopeStack. So it's a pre-sales tool built for SOW automation, services pricing, which in my background was a big part of pre-sales. And so that's what I'm currently doing. Part of that, I worked for several IT services integrators, big ones, small ones, and everything in between.
Okay, so I've talked mostly to people who sell like either software, sell their own software, sell their own hardware. We were just discussing right before we started that that's not what you did. You were more into the services part. Can you discuss a little bit about that, how that is, and is it any different than actual hardware?
Yeah. So the industry I came from is really like the IT integrator industry, right? And so a big part of that sales motion is the hardware software, but we're not the OEMs of it, right? We're the resellers of that hardware software. And so as the profitability aspect of hardware and software went down, services became even more important. So how do we attach our businesses, professional services to that sell? And so, pricing professional services, writing up statements of work, that became just as important as building out a bill of materials around hardware and software. So that's really where ScopeStack was born from.
Okay.
Was in that.
All right. And so you sold other vendors or other OEMs products as well, and plus the services?
Yeah. So my background was always very Cisco centric. So I started out as a network engineer at a hospital system, doing a lot of Cisco hands-on implementation work, and then found the world of pre-sales where I didn't have to, sit in closets during cutovers and, do all that fun stuff. I could have the glamorous life of a pre-sales engineer. So
very glamorous.
Very glamorous. What I love about it is like you get to do the engineering part of it, but you also get to engage in the sales side. And so like bridging that gap was always really exciting to me, and talking to customers and solving problems. So I love it.
So one thing we used to do, like we do when we're selling hardware or software, there is a price attached to it. Like this piece of hardware costs that much, so you're going to pay that much. For services, it's kind of like abstract. And, when you're selling hardware or software, the customer sees, okay, there's a piece of hardware, there's a piece of software, values it. So
sure.
How do you show the value of services to customers when most people think that, I can do it myself?
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that think they can do it themselves. I think it's a matter of selling outcomes to a certain extent, right? Like it's not so much about the implementation, but it is the end result and what you gain from those services after the fact, right? So like had I not engaged in professional services, maybe I couldn't have, exceeded in my work from home strategy that because of COVID happened. Like so the business cares about the outcome, the service is just a critical part to get there.
Right.
And I think, the evaluation process of should we do this internally versus externally is it's always a business decision. And if you can do it faster and cheaper than they can do it internally, then it's, typically a win. Typically,
Yeah.
not always.
Right.
Fair. And like we were talking a little bit earlier before the show about, and we'll probably get into it a little bit later on as well, about how nowadays, there's been a little bit of a resurgence of I guess just pre-sales love out there, a lot of communities
Yeah.
out there that are supporting it. So I'd imagine even just with respect to pricing out these services in the past and perhaps other just value add, I guess, components in a sales deal, it seemed to, or were there gaps that kind of caused you to be inspired for the idea to create ScopeStack? Like what were kind of
Yeah.
your thoughts that led you towards that?
Yeah. So like all these companies that I work for, again, the big and the small, like the part of scoping and pricing services was always really cumbersome. So it was always using Excel and Word templates. Some of them had a little bit more maturity around that, like the Excel function would live in some other custom software tool. But like the idea of coupling those things together never really existed. And so our whole idea is, we were seeing numbers like it takes 18 business days to, from the client saying, hey, I want you to scope this out, to the partner or the integrator getting them a statement of work. Well, how can we do it in like 18 minutes, right? How do we make it extremely easy for that pre-sales engineer who may not be comfortable scoping services to like equip them to scope it, deliver it faster to their clients, allow you to, increase speed of the opportunity. And again, like not many pre-sales engineers that I talk to want to be writing Word documents, right? So like that's not why they're the highest paid resource in some of the organizations that I worked with. The reason they're some of the highest paid is because they're really good in front of customers.
Wait, are they higher paid than salespeople? Please tell me.
I mean, they should be. Well, edit that part out. But no, I mean, they typically are, right? Because a lot of sales is, at least their base pay is. But
yeah. I see a lot of, well, I guess that's a different discussion, but
yeah.
salespeople get paid more if they hit their quota, and
Sure.
they get really paid more if they blow it out of the water. SEs are safe, and with risk comes reward, or unreward, I guess, if you don't make it.
Yeah, and I will say this: like starting a business and being responsible for a lot more of the sales aspects than I was before. Like I have a whole lot more respect for sales because that junk is not easy. It is not easy.
What are you doing now that you weren't doing before?
Everything. So, right. I mean, that's the good and the bad of building a business is, we're growing and our team is growing, but in the beginning, I'm doing legal and accounting and sales and HR. Like those are things had I not left my corporate job to start ScopeStack, I never would have experienced, nor would I have known like the good, the bad, and the hardships that come along with each of those positions too.
Jeez, how did you make do with, like never having done these things before, then just being thrown into it?
Man, I was very blessed just to have like a bunch of good advisors and kind of mentors around me. So there's a local program here in town through a startup incubator called Next, and they have a mentorship program that put 6 or so executives that had done this before around me, and I met with them once a month, and like that was huge. They would keep me in line, help me not to quit my job. Like I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make enough money, right? And they were like, no, just keep going. There's good things are happening. So I think having that like mentorship is huge, to be honest with you.
Fair. Yeah, that's the second time, or at least there's been a few people come on here that have started companies where those local incubators have really helped out quite a lot to help grow businesses. That's cool to hear from you.
Yeah, and so we were like doubly blessed, I guess, because we actually had people that had worked in the channel that we were selling into. And so like, it wasn't just a business entrepreneur with no context for what we were doing. So we had some that actually knew what we were talking about. They knew SaaS, software as a service. They knew technology, the technology channel. So that was helpful as well.
So you are not like, you're telling me you're coming from a services background. SaaS is a completely different world for you.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to be blunt. Why? And how? I guess these are the general questions.
That was
Why
a
and how?
good question. Yeah. A lot of people ask me that at the beginning. So, you know, man, I don't, you know, it was almost a necessity, right? Like we built this thing and we built it in the mindset of like reselling it, and it's software. And so just the revenue model kind of, it is what it is, right? Like it's software and we deliver it as a service.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, my background was not, I'd never built a SaaS company. I didn't know all the metrics that went into it when I first started. And so like, that's where those mentors come in. That's where I was thankful to have and still have a really good co-founder, CTO, that knows the software side backward and forward. And so that's one thing I would recommend is if you have any smart friends, keep them close.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to follow up with that question, but you just answered it for me. Benny, go ahead.
Wait, which question was it, or what was the comment there?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask about like if he doesn't have the experience with doing SaaS, how did he start a SaaS? And the answer was he found someone who actually does. And how did you meet that person? Like to actually?
Yeah. So funny enough, my wife babysat his kids a really long time ago. And so we just kind of kept in touch and just family friends. And I knew he was a software developer and he'd been doing it for a really long time. And, you know, he's extremely bright in building software. And so he's, you know, helping us grow that team and make sure we have standards in place to build a really good product. But again, I think that's the thing, man, is just like we've just had really good people around us. Like we've had a few, you know, not so good here and there, but overall, like everyone's been really bought into it. They're all really good at what they do and they do all sorts of stuff. So, you know, we have a bunch of nerds on our team, which is not bad. You can get a lot of stuff done with nerds in software.
Nerds rule the world today.
That's right. I won't tell you the names of the nerds, just, you know,
well, I can find them on LinkedIn probably.
Yeah, you probably can. Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead, Benny.
All right, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I was just going to quickly ask, you know, when you're kind of foraying into this new territory, and you know, even if you do have other people on your team that are able to help out in a lot of ways, in what ways did your pre-sales experience kind of help prepare you for, or maybe not, for this, I guess, just for this new venture that you're diving into?
Man, I think like pre-sales in itself is such a dynamic job, right? Like you get to talk to clients all day long, hear about and just fix problems. And I think that at the core of all, we're just trying to fix a problem, right? And so like those client conversations with our clients are very much like a pre-sales conversation. So like, what are your problems? How can we fix it with this software? And we work through that with them. And I think that level of like problem solving and authenticity has gotten us to where we are today. And it's been huge. And we have some really good customers that work with us and are willing to, you know, go along if we make a mistake, which is also really good. And so I think that, you know, support and just treating people well, like it's not overly complex. And I think a lot of those traits came from being an engineer, pre-sales engineer specifically.
Fair. That makes sense. You know, I haven't been doing this for too long per se, but just that we talked a lot about it on the show, this idea of being that trusted advisor. It comes with the role in such a strong way, this idea of kind of coming in and, you know, have the goal and intent of solving problems, but doing so in a way that that's as transparent as possible without kind of selling the dream that aren't possible. So
it really, like, it just feels like when we're talking to current clients or prospective clients, it just feels like a conversation.
Right.
As opposed to like, you know, me hawking some goods that we made.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like we're still in that industry to a certain extent, like the industry that we're selling into, IT services and integrators. And so being able to just talk the talk and be, you know, have that conversation is great.
Well, like the way I think about it, a lot of times people become SEs and their customers are the companies that they used to work for, right? Like
Yeah.
I used to work for Alcatel-Lucent, and then I became a vendor of Alcatel-Lucent, and it was very easy for me to speak their language.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of the same thing for you, where you became,
Oh,
yeah,
100%. Because like I worked, and you know, like I said this before, and I think I told you this, but like I didn't want to start a business like in this gray space, right? Like me working somewhere and then trying to talk to its competitors. That just didn't feel good to me. Probably because it was illegal. But you know, all that being aside, like that's it, right? Like everyone in the integrator space, they each have like their kind of value add, their twist on how they implement things and do things. But at the end of the day, like the function and the mechanics around it's all pretty similar. And so you're 100% right.
so you basically quit your job in order to start this. You, like most people started on the side or whatever. You
I
quit your
couldn't.
job.
Yeah, quit it. Couldn't.
Wow.
We couldn't do it because again, I think there were probably some legal issues with that, but had to do it, man. Like, and I think you know that was the decision. Is like you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. There's no middle ground to like have a side hustle and then you know go do something else.
So like I talk to a lot of people, and every time we mention like, oh, someone did this, like, oh, that was my idea, or someone did this. Everybody had an idea, but
Yeah.
not many people actually go out and do that idea. I've like you're either getting pushed out of the company that you're working for, or pushed out of the industry because you're either hated and you're trying to do something different, or you're being pulled towards like a different company. Did you get pushed or did you get pulled? How did you take the steps to actually start a business?
No, I was hardcore pulled by solving this problem, I think. And so, you know, I really wanted to do it where I was, but I think after just talking to some folks and kind of navigating through that, like that level of innovation and to be able to build to the scale of what we wanted to do, it wasn't going to happen. And so, you know, definitely pulled towards solving this one particular thing. It was huge.
So did you try to like talk to your company that you're working for to create this, and then it wasn't feasible? So did I misunderstand that?
No, yeah. So we initially had a conversation like just like, hey, I want to try to solve this for us, and like just didn't go anywhere, right? Kind of red tape city. And so like, and at the end of the day, like I wanted to create something and do something, and I think yes, it was scary, but to be able to have that freedom to go out and create whatever you want was huge for me.
Fair. Let me ask a quick question. So I mean, I'd imagine when just from your experiences, it obviously helped.
Yeah.
You know, kind of I can't think of the word. I guess it inspired you to kind of create. Wow, I can't say the word. Scope Stack. So I'm sure you had a sense of kind of what types of companies you'd be helping. Obviously, the types of companies you'd worked with before. Have you ever been surprised to this point with respect to just wholly new companies and industries that you never thought of before jumping on board with your software, or just maybe in your system helping people in ways you never thought of?
Yeah, so I think those are two different things. So like one, we built this for like IT integrators and like a very specific, client base that we know who to talk to. And so we're building it that way. And then all of a sudden we have like a maid service signed up for right? Like that's not who we were building it for, but okay, if it helps you. Because that's the thing is like we try to build a software in a way that like it can go into different markets if it needs to. So like while we're building it for this, it's flexible in a sense where it could be used for literally anyone providing services. And so that's the answer to part of that question. The second part is, yeah, I mean like because we built it in a scalable way, I see people using it in ways like I had no idea they would use it like that, and that's really cool to see. Because you had like this one thing in mind, and all of a sudden you look at it, you're like, man, like we should have thought of that, right? But we didn't.
It's hard to think of things when you're in it, right?
And
sometimes you need like an external, like that's where advisors come in handy because they can see it from the outside coming in.
Yeah.
I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper about like the process of going from employee to CEO. You mentioned you were pulled to solve this problem. How did you have the confidence to know that it's actually going to solve a problem and you're going to be able to sell it and do everything that's related to selling, which you mentioned are like legal, accounting, and all that? So how did you change that mindset?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, I was just very sure of the problem, and I was very sure that a lot of people had the problem, right? That led to, okay, honey, I'm going to quit my job. We have X amount of money set aside, so our runway is, X amount of time. If I don't sell something in that amount of time, then maybe this isn't going to work, right? And so, like, for me and for us is, left my job in January. We had our first client in March. And so I was thankful to, like, okay, that's a really good sign. And they're still on the platform, which is also good. And so, like, to get like that early win was huge. Like, I remember like holding the check. I went to the PO box. Like, we weren't even doing like credit cards at that point. It was like a straight up check. And like, that was a really cool moment just to say, like, hey, someone that you're not related to bought something from you. And like in startup world, like that's a big win, big first win.
So like you didn't even have credit cards, like a check. Does that mean you didn't have the systems in place already?
Yeah, it was so early. Like we it was so we built the software, like the core functionality of it, but around like payment gateways and the subscription, API and like all that fun stuff, like didn't come until a couple months later.
Okay.
So like even to the point where like I don't even know what to do with this check. Like
you didn't have a bank account.
I mean, I think we just got one. Right?
You opened it specifically for that check, probably.
Exactly. Like mobile deposit. I don't know how this works, but
so that's like jumping off a plane and building your parachute on the way down, kind of.
Building the plane on the way down. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that. I don't. Okay. Oh wow. And how did you have the
confidence? Didn't it?
What was that?
That one threw you, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine building the plane on the way down. How did you get up?
Right. That's a good point. Hot air balloon, I think.
Anyways, so it basically it was a minimum viable product. You were able to sell it before it was even perfect, and yet a lot of SEs have problems selling a product that's been made for a few years because it didn't have a specific feature. How did you overcome that?
I think that because we knew the problem and like the core functionality was there, and you hit the nail on it. Like the MVP was there. It is what it is, right? And I think what's been really cool about this experience is it's so different creating something and then selling it versus getting paid to sell it, right? Like you don't know like what all went into that. You don't know why this part was built. And so like being from the ground up and like seeing like, I know the history behind this feature. Like it developed from this to this to this, and why it developed to this to that. And like there's a level of like buy-in I think you get when you build it your own, build it by yourself and with your team, that you just get you're clearly more bought into it, and so I think that's how we got over it. Was we knew we were solving a specific problem and not veering off and trying to solve like all these other different auxiliary things that we could have solved too through software. Like we knew we were doing this one thing.
Okay, so you laser focused on the one problem that it is. You didn't have any additional features, and you kind of put your heart and soul into that.
Yeah. So, and that's what we've been doing from the get-go, or from up until now, right? Is like we're trying to stay extremely focused around solving this one thing, and like, we can integrate and we can do this and do that, and like we enhance the product over time. We listen to our customers, and because we're selling into the same market, all the customers do the same thing. Like we're able to create a product, I think, that just benefits a whole lot of people because we're focused.
So like when you go and do your market research, I've seen that we bring in PMs to talk to our customers, and we ask them, what do you want so we can build a product for you? And they give us a list of 17,000 different things that they want for $5. How, and then did you, I assume you did, is that something that you did and your team did?
Yeah. We're always asking how can we enhance this? We have product requests, feature requests, but I think the cool thing about us is like we actually do it. We actually take that feedback, and if it's good, right? Like if it's, hey, we build this pink, we may not do that. But
so my question was, before you even sold the first product, the first customer, the first version of the product, you knew, like you had your experience of the problem, And did you go outside and like find other people who had similar experiences, or how did you find out what's the consensus for the problem?
Yeah, no, I think, not I think, what we did is I tried to solve it for my experience,
Okay.
because I was in that industry, and I had seen a couple different flavors of how to solve it, and really the function, like, so we were able to kind of synthesize down like what's the core functionality that needs to happen, and then we just build on that. And I think, Ramsey, like that was something that you and I talked about early on, was like there's this whole concept of like an earned secret. And so
Yeah.
like you're working in this industry, like you earn the ability to understand that market and those problems by working in that job. And so like that is what I had. So I spent, 10 years of doing this, and I earned the ability to kind of have this secret that we could then go build something on.
I'm taking a note because that's the title of the podcast, Earning a Secret.
Earned secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to play with that. Play around with it. I'll talk to you later. We'll figure it out. Benny,
All
I
right.
think you had a good question somewhere on the notes.
Yes. So I guess just with respect to, well, I guess just being in on the secret, and maybe just having that vision with respect to what it is that you wanted to build. How was it that you conveyed that to the rest of the team to get them to buy in as well to your vision and to your goal?
Yeah. So early on, it was me and one other guy. So like the team wasn't that big.
But how did you get him to do it?
Yeah. So like that was, I would literally like build out stuff in Excel, right? And say like, hey, see this functionality, like this is what we need to have in the software, but it also needs to do this. Like it needs to automate the creation of a statement of work, which is a big like ask.
So did he also I'm assuming it's a gentleman. Is it a
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did
Andy.
he quit his job as well and work with you at the same time, or did he continue doing his job and work part-time with you?
Yeah, so he was able to continue his
Okay.
job for a while, simply because it wasn't a competitive industry, right? And I think he wanted to vet out my idea a little bit further before he
Yeah.
made that jump. Like there could only be one crazy person in the group to start with.
Well, yeah.
But that gave us some flexibility and some freedom to kind of, do other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's what Benny was going after. Like people are going to leave their jobs to come and work for a startup, as you called a crazy person. I don't know that. I will neither confirm nor deny. So beyond your CTO, how are you getting people to actually join your company right now? I don't know how many people you have. I'm not sure if you want to disclose that or not. But how do you get other people to join you in such a early stage startup?
I think it's all about like being honest with them. I think is always a good start, and having a certain level of authenticity around it. But like the folks that are getting really excited about it right now, and then just I'm getting messages like, hey, can I join your we talk to us, you try to sell this into our business, and like I'm really interested in solving this with you. Like they understand the problem, and I think they see like where it could go and how it can solve a bunch of issues. And so like they also have that level of like earned secret, to the extent of like, hey, this is great, never seen anything like this, but I clearly know the problem too, and this solves it. So that's been really exciting. And like, good. Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just saying, how are you going to stay in touch? Because as time goes, the problems are going to change. How are you going to stay in touch? How do you plan to stay in touch, and so you can have that earned secret?
Yeah, I think our customers that's going to be the key for us, and maintaining that level of like understanding. So I think we're just going to have to listen really well, in that space, because I've had that same thought, and that's like one of my fears, to be honest with you, is like, oh crap, it's going to change in 10 years. Like, how am I going to know? But hopefully we're part of that change.
Yeah, you drive that change,
and so we can kind of maintain. Yeah, we drive that change, and so like that's been one of the crazy things. Like we're almost creating a market or a category, because there's nothing like it, and that has its own issues. But
you're familiar with Gary Keller? He's like Keller Williams
Realty.
I think
I've heard the name.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
Like he's a multi-millionaire or even more. I don't know. But he always talks about like thinking, like creating the product that would be his competition, right? Like how would the competition create a product to put him out of business right now? And he would go and do it, and that's how he changed his business so many times. I don't know how many
Oh, yeah,
times.
I like that.
So, but yeah, like that's kind of, but you just did that. You're changing the business for the first time for somebody else. And I guess the next step in a few
Yeah.
years, you'd have to think about it. Like, what else would kill my business? Who would be my competitor? And just do that.
Right.
Yeah. This
Right.
is very
Nice.
interesting.
I just want to quickly say, I suppose it kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier around some of those qualities you get as a pre-sales person in general, right? Just always kind of listening and understanding like what the market is looking for and needing maybe a little bit before it even happens. And obviously you're right on the pulse of it. And then just adjusting as you need to. So I could definitely see you doing that pretty naturally. Also, speaking of things that may or may not come naturally to you, I saw that you were in the past, you kind of worked as a mentor, as an SE mentor for a little bit. Now you're obviously an SE, or rather a CEO and a founder. Were you always a leader, did you find, or is that something you kind of had to grow into? Did you kind of have to build that over time?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's, I think it's something you develop over time, rather. And I think like that, I think experience working with people, like I've learned a lot, like watching managers what not to do as well as what to do. And so I just try to emulate the things that like attracted me towards those leaders. You know, big one just being like basic stuff, right? Like honesty and transparency and just trying to be authentic. I know I've said that word a bunch of times, but like that is huge. I think because people can see right through that junk. If you're not authentic, if you don't know what you're talking about, they'll see straight through it.
Fair. That's very true. Yeah, definitely a big fear that I've had, especially lately as I joined a company relatively recently, and so kind of jumping on. Well, I've learned to be a little bit better and not to do this as much, but trying to make it seem as if I know more than I actually do is, yeah, it's a slippery slope without a doubt. And
yeah, definitely.
In a whole bunch of ways.
Speed and feeds will never get you stuck.
Very much so.
What is, like you just said, you learned about what to do and what not to do. You mentioned about honesty. What is one big thing you learned not to do from one of your previous managers, and what's one thing you learned to do other than being honest?
Yeah, I think one thing not to do is, I don't know, I'd say micromanage. I mean, there are probably a bunch of different ways you can say that, but like you need in order to scale anything, like starting a business, doing like, you have to find good people and then just trust them to do what you ask them to do. I know that sounds maybe a little cheesy, but.
Well, actually, that's a very good point, because as a startup CEO, you did everything.
Yeah.
How are you able to let go of some stuff so somebody else can do it differently than you?
I just have to trust the people that are here. And so that's the good part, is if you can find really good people that are bought into it, that you can trust, they can trust you. Like there's nothing that you can't do.
How do you find people you trust?
To me, it's been people that I've worked with in the past, people that I know, friends and family. One of my mentors said, always be hiring. It's not always be closing, but it's always be hiring. And so like more oftentimes than not, I'm talking to people that I have no money to pay them, but like I know they're really good and they would really help our business. And a couple of those times we've had a pretty cool opportunity to do something together, right? And like bring them into the business slowly, as opposed to like cutting a huge check to get them into it, because they know what we're doing is good. So to me, it's people that I've worked with. Our industry is really small. It's a really small industry. It may not seem like it, but like people have reputations, and I think that's what I look for. And I just go and find people that I've worked with in the past and try to build relationships with others.
I like this. Always be hiring. It's like digging the well before you're thirsty. A lot of people.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people like cannot hire anybody because somebody quit and now they have to hire someone real quick, and they end up hiring probably the worst person because he did well on the interviews and they were in a hurry. So I like that. Like in startups, you can't really afford to do that. Like it's just
no, you can't. But I mean, I always like having the conversation. I think it's just I like to think into the future about it and think of the future about it. And we've been blessed to have some really good people come on and help us out.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, like I have a lot of questions about starting a startup, but let's move on to the not so fire round.
All right.
This is the same questions we ask all of our guests, or at least most of our guests. We tweak them up little bit based on the person we're talking to, and usually Benny the Beard starts us off.
Benny the Beard.
All right. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about you obviously starting a startup and all, and just your experiences in general. What do you love about being a founder, and what did you love about starting up Scope? Oh my God, Scope Stack. Sorry.
You can be like my father-in-law calls it smokestack, but you know. So I think the thing that I like the most is the creativity and the freedom around it. So like literally, you know, every time I talk to our CTO, I'm like, hey, can we do this? He's like, it's software. You can do whatever you want. Right. And like that, something about that is extremely freeing to me. Like literally whatever you want. And like that gets me jazzed.
True enough. No kidding. Yeah. You just dream something up and
Yeah.
make it so.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what Elon Musk was thinking when he made Tesla and everything else? Because that's not software.
Yeah,
No.
Probably.
Yeah.
You might have been doing something from a smokestack, I'd imagine, when something came.
So the next question is, what would you change about being part of a startup or being an SE, whichever one you want to answer?
Being an SE, you said?
Whichever one you want to answer, because you know you were an SE for a very long time. Now you're a startup CEO. You can pick one or answer both. Doesn't really. It's a not so fire round. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think what I would change about being an SE is like, I always would have loved to be more involved, like sooner, right? As opposed to just like, and I don't know if that, I don't really know what that boils down to, but like I wanted to be part of the deal from the beginning, as opposed to coming in like a hitman when it counts. I mean, that part's cool and all, but not so much treated as like a resource, if that makes any sense.
You like to be part of the planning more than just the execution.
Yeah, like it should, like some of the most successful teams I've been on, like it's a team and like you have a really good relationship. If you can like foster that, and you can do some really cool stuff. And I think moving that back to Scope Stack, like the creating a team part is awesome. That was not the question. I just realized that. But.
No, it's fine. You can you can answer whatever you want. That's okay, what
cool.
good
whatever question you ask,
right?
I'm just gonna
answer whichever question you wanted to answer.
All right. That was just a good answer in general. It definitely resonates strongly, I guess, to me. Like I've only been an SC at a couple places, and the last place I was very much that resource that would be brought on deals and be that hitman, as you said. And maybe I get to see people a couple times or see prospects more than once, but the norm was like 1 or 2 demos over a period of time, and then you know the deal would close because it would typically be near the end. But I'm in an opportunity where like upon the discovery and upon that first call, I'm there and I get to know these people and get to see the evolution of the solution from beginning to end. And it's very different. It's nice though. Definitely, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I wish we could figure out a way to like, and I honestly think like COVID has caused some of this because it's all virtual, but like figure out a way to scale to be in front of customers more. So as opposed to like, it's really hard to scale pre-sales engagement if you have to be physically in front of the customer every time. And so like, it's not as easy as if it's virtual. So like, if we could figure out, you know, maybe it's time travel. I'm not sure, but like figure out a way to scale that client-facing activity. I think it would be a cool deal.
So for the companies that I've worked for and many other companies here in Ottawa, because it's a small community and we service Ottawa, we don't service anybody else. We're like, if we're not visiting customers, we're not doing our job.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe like if you want to scale that means you have like, I think hiring more people would be cheaper than inventing time travel. So that might be an option you want to go.
Definitely that front investment for sure. That one.
Or holograms, you know, that was that
now
one
we're talking.
of a Tupac rather. So maybe start out with holograms in the office and you can go anywhere really quickly.
Yes. About some holograms.
It could be the future, that or VR, you know. I don't know if that might be a thing anymore.
That might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
I picture holograms as like some glittery picture of Benny.
Yeah.
Benny the Beard.
You put your hand right through the beard.
Yeah.
I think we're going off track here with that picture. Benny, can you ask the next question, please?
For sure. So maybe not a VR headset, but what are some tools or resources or books or whatnot that you may recommend to people, either in pre-sales or perhaps even those that are looking to start up their own company?
Yeah, for me, I'll kind of hit on this. Was like I I didn't really have any experience building a SaaS company. So SaaStr, SaaS, TR, you can look them up, but that was a really good resource just for looking at anything and all things software as a service. And then where I found myself like spending a lot of time was like how to be productive in my day and like prioritize work. A book and then getting like more into the sales side, a book called Never Split the Difference. I don't know if y'all read that one. That thing is awesome. I've actually read it twice. I've never read any book twice. But like that's just a really cool book. And it's like I tried some of that stuff on my wife and it never worked. But
one day. It's practice.
One day. She's like, why are you repeating everything I say? Anyway. And so that's a really good book. But I mean, there's so many resources out there, and like the mentorship thing that is one recommendation I would definitely have is if you can put some people around you that know either what you're about to go into or know, the industry that you're selling into or something like that. That's huge.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Last question of the not so fire round is what separates great SEs, or if you want to do startup founders, I think SEs might be easier right now. What separates great SEs from the okay or not so great ones?
I had someone explain to me, like describe an SE as like a Jedi Knight one time. I think the good ones can and kind of excel in interacting with people. Like they can hear and listen and interact in a way that like helps people drop their guard, and you can have a really authentic conversation with them, as opposed to you get up there and you whiteboard, you don't really establish any sort of relationship with them. It becomes more of a nuts and bolts type of conversation, as opposed to like a business conversation. There's relationships, there's if you can become, like Benny said, like that trusted advisor, I think that's the sweet spot. And I think a big part of that is people skills.
All right. That's a great answer. So last question of the day is, if people want to connect with you, or what can our community do to help ScopeStack or Jon Scott, and where can they reach out?
Yeah, so like I said, we the big part of ScopeStack right now is just brand awareness. So like any engineering-led firm, as you might know, we spent a couple of years of building something and we never told anyone about it, right? So like brand awareness is huge for us. So just getting the word out around ScopeStack. So you can find us on LinkedIn, and you can find myself on LinkedIn, and that's where we do a lot of our engagement as far as that goes.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Jon. I wish you luck. I know this show was not sponsored by ScopeStack in any way, but it was fun talking to you about solving the problem. So
yeah, man.
That was very good. Thanks, man. And if we can do anything to help Benny and I, let us know.
Yeah, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's anytime.
And that's the end of the show. Thanks, Jon, for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation, and it's interesting. I kind of did the same path as Jon, except I didn't start my own company, but I did move from a customer to a vendor, which gave me that earned secret that Jon talked about.
Fair. Yeah.
So it's a great path. If you're looking for a way to become a sales engineer and you have vendors that work with you, you already know the customers, you are the customers. The big mistake that I did was that I assumed that everybody's like me. So I am one portion of a customer, like I am one subset. But there are other customers out there that I still had to learn, but I still had an earned secret.
True. Oh. Yeah, just having that leg up, or just having that step forward to kind of know what at least what a customer is looking for, definitely kind of makes it a lot easier to kind of learn what other customers are looking for as well. But yeah, no, that definitely is good, as we heard. I also thought it was pretty cool too, just to kind of hear about how he got to eventually running his business, and how a whole bunch of connections that he made along the way throughout his career kind of came together and helped support or help prop up this business that otherwise might not have been possible had he not met a couple of people earlier in his career.
Yeah, and had he not been flexible and didn't ask his co-founder to simply just drop everything and start on with him, he basically had a side job. It was his side job for a while. So that was great. I really enjoyed talking to him. I really got nothing else to say. Thanks, Jon, for coming on again. I hope you guys enjoyed Thanksgiving. I know it was last week, but I hope you had a nice long weekend, for our friends down south, I think you are incorrect in the timing of Thanksgiving because Canadians are always right. I think people outside of Canada and the US don't care about this conversation. So without
Thanks
further
for
ado,
listening.
what was
How about
that?
that? I mean, we're thankful for you listening, though. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we are thankful for you listening. If you think this show is helpful to anybody, if you think you have a friend who is thinking about starting his own business or moving into sales engineering or moving into sales, I would highly recommend you share this podcast with them. I am biased, but I think it's useful personally.
Yeah.
I benefit out of it. I do it for selfish reasons and I benefit. So I hope you guys do as well. If you haven't done so, leave a rating and review, share, like, subscribe. What else do we say?
That's
With
pretty
that,
much it. I would say follow our Patreon. It's not up yet. But
we don't have a Patreon.
yeah, no.
I even considered it. So never mind that. But yeah, like share, like, subscribe. And if you do want to support the show and you're thinking of like, how do we support this show? You can always go to like the resources page on our website, click on any Amazon link. Whatever you buy, we get a small commission out of it, like 5%. So if you buy something for $100, we see $5.
And there's quite a few great resources on there. It's an amalgamation of all the books that have been recommended by different people on the show, and well, there's other tools as well. Definitely a great place to go to further yourself.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. Thanks, guys, for listening. For Benny, this is Ramsey signing off. Sorry. For Benny and Benny's beard, this is Ramsey signing off.